Gutless, spineless, embarrassing. Just some of the words used by Burnley fans in the past 24 hours to describe the team's abject performance in Saturday's 5-0 defeat at Turf Moor to Arsenal. We've got used to talking about home defeats this season on this podcast. We've had just one win at the Turf this year after all, and no one will be shocked by a heavy loss to one of the title contenders. But there was something different about the way Burnley fans reacted to this latest performance. Fans walked out early. There were boos at the end. And online, the frustrations of the season came pouring out, with some even calling for the head of manager Vincent Kompany. Is Kompany to blame for this sorry state of affairs, though? Or do others share the responsibility? And where do the club go from here? We'll discuss all that and much more on this episode of From the Be-All End.
Jimmy McElroy to Upton. Go!
So welcome to From the Be-All End. I'm Simon Evans, and with me is a full squad, and we've got Andrew Greaves, we've got Justin Connolly, Paul Woodhouse, and Chris Bowden, who hopefully is not joining us from outer Mongolia on this version. Let's start off with the lads who were at the Turf yesterday, because the mood and the atmosphere and how it all went needs that perspective from people who were there rather than those of us watching it on television. Justin, I mean, It did feel different from the other defeats, didn't it, in some way?
It certainly did. I mean, the response from the crowd was pretty apathetic, I would say. You know, there's a real sense, I think, that people sort of really expect a defeat. They expect lots of goals to go in, and there's not even a lot of. I've talked about this before. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of anger. It's a really strange sort of experience being there. I was trying to sort of describe the performance to somebody who hadn't seen it on TV, and the best I could come up with was it was a bit like watching Arsenal play a team of elderly sheep who were just sort of wandering about aimlessly. And just doing the best to try and keep out of Arsenal's way as best they could. And in fact, I was really struggling to come up with a sort of idea of what the actual plan was. You know, what they were trying to do, what they'd been working on in training all week, and it just seemed to me that was it. That they were trying to get out of Arsenal's way and just let them do what they wanted. It was embarrassing. It was really, really disappointing after. I mean, last week we were a bit more enthusiastic after the Liverpool performance. And I think we went into this game more with a bit of hope. You know, I did think that, you know, we would struggle to get anything out of the game, but to lose like that is a disgrace, really, isn't it? To put in that level of performance is a disgrace. We were so far off the level required, not just in terms of the quality that we had on the pitch, but in terms of the application. And that's what's unforgivable. You know, we've got to match teams like Arsenal for all those other elements of the games where we're not better than them. And we didn't come anywhere near it on Saturday, anywhere near it. And I can't tell you what happened in the second half because I spent most of the time staring at the floor, shaking my head.
Yeah, Greasy, I mean, that's it really, isn't it? It's not so much that we know that, you know, in terms of the quality, we're not on a level with Arsenal, but it's the effort and the application, as Justin put it. That's what people seem to have found unforgivable about yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, Arsenal spanked West Ham, you know, the week before, and we were all thinking, well, they've got it out of the way. You know, they'll turn teams over. They're a brilliant side. I think, you know, if teams continue, you know, City continue to drop the odd point here and there, then Arsenal could end up winning it. But as Justin said, the one thing you cannot forgive is any player going out in a Burnley shirt, any Burnley team being put out and just not doing the basics. And that basics is hard work, you know. And I was so pissed off when I watched Josh Brownhill's interview today, where he's talking about, well, we know we weren't at it. Well, that don't cut the mustard with me, son. I'm afraid you've got to be at it. You get paid a hell of a lot of money to be at it. And we have these, you know, we have this kind of, it's all about the mentality. It's about the mentality. You know, the mentality is we've got to take us chances. Every week, Vincent comes out and talks about the mentality. There is no fucking mentality at all. Whatever the mentality is, it is not a winning mentality. It's not even a competing mentality. There is, you know, you can forgive a lack of quality. You absolutely can. You know, I don't mind.
Yeah.
You know, we're used to it. What you cannot forgive is players turning into ghosts and, you know, twatting around the field like they're on a jolly on a Saturday in the pissing rain and not getting close to even putting a foot in on players. I mean, I don't think Declan Rice will have an easier game in his career. You know, I don't think Odegaard will have an easier game in his career. I don't think, you know, Ben White, who I am not a fan of, I don't think Ben White's that good a footballer. And, you know, people will come at me, but he will not have an easier game. You know, David Raya might as well have been sat in the cricket field stand. He won't have an easier game. And within 4 minutes, we're 1-0 down because somebody's not picked Odegaard up on the edge of the box. Odegaard has time to set his body, to take a touch, work out where he's going to put it, and angle it into the far corner. You know, it is so disappointing that, you know, we hear this drivel. I know managers, you know, Vinny came out and said, you know, at times like this, it's probably best to say less. It's not. It's best to call it out for what it was, which is a bullshit performance by a bullshit group of players who I have lost patience with.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
the positive one, don't forget.
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Chris, I mean, we just watched Luton Town going against Manchester United and giving it absolutely everything after a dreadful start, a Burnley-style start, really, and then coming back, getting a goal, battling away until you know, right until the final whistle. And watching it on American television, you know, the NBC pundits, the first point they made in their post-game analysis was compare that, you know, contrast that with what we saw from Vincent Kompany's Burnley yesterday. I mean, it's light years, isn't it?
It's chalk and cheese. I mean, it's a different way of playing. It's a different group of players. But like Greasy said, you know, the minimum you expect is a bit of fight, you know, a bit of heart, a bit of, you know, it's got to hurt. You know, I don't see that at all. You know, it doesn't hurt. The only player I saw any hurting was Jay Rodriguez, and it's I mean, even when you know, you look at the Brian Laws, you know, probably had a bit of an impossible job. You know, the team he took over, and I mean, that was, you know, destined to fail, and it did fail. But I think there was hurt there in that group, and that's, you know, that's Burnley's probably the worst performance we've had in a Premier League season, and they're probably going to accrue twice as many points as this lot. Which said, you know, at times that season, you know, you had centre backs of, you know, Leon Court, Clark Carlisle, and they're going to accrue probably twice as many points. They won the first 4 games of the season under Coyle at home. We've not won 4 games yet. It's pathetic. It's embarrassing. It's just like I say, really, they squandered. Time last year, we're crowing not only about winning every other week, you know, not losing many games, but I think it was Steve Eyre on Radio Lancashire, and he was basically saying this team and Vincent Kompany, they're producing football that's so far ahead of its time. I wasn't one of those expecting Burnley to waltz into the Premier League and, you know, finish in the top half. I was just, you know, 17th and above. You know, let's just try and consolidate, go from there. But from within 3 or 4 minutes of the opening night, just giving away. You know, teams haven't had to work hard enough, anywhere near hard enough to score goals. You know, the space that they are, Rice is in, that Martinelli's in, that Odegaard's in, score that opening goal is just ridiculous. So I've seen a few, freeze frames that I think you put up, Simon, on Twitter. There's 3 Arsenal players at the back post, spare, on every corner kick and every wide free kick. A bit of zonal marking, bit of man-to-man marking, a complete and utter mishmash. And, it's just a shambles. 0.00 goals, expected goals. Not even laying a glove on teams. Like I said, Sean's teams, they did cause upsets. Basically, they beat all the top 6. We celebrated wins home and away against the big 6. And this lot haven't even got close to laying a glove on. It's just been a write-off from day one. And I don't see the project. I don't see the process. I've no idea. I expect another overhaul in players in the summer, and we're starting from square one for me. It's just been an absolute shambles.
Yeah, no, it's grim, isn't it? I mean, Woody, I was just talking to somebody then who said, comparing the way that Luton play as well, and said Burnley play like robots who've been badly programmed. Mm-hmm. That they're so obsessed with the way of playing that you see the top teams, and Arsenal do it, and we saw Spurs do it against us, where they will go long sometimes. They will try and play, but it's so slow. I mean, he was slow last year in Championship, but I don't know. Last year, maybe teams, we've talked about it, Chris mentioned this a few times, that they maybe treated us with more respect than we deserved last year because we were playing this Manchester City football or trying to. But it does feel like the play. I mean, I guess my point, Woody, is are we blaming the players here for not being good enough, or are they being put in a situation where they can't succeed?
It's got to be a bit of both, hasn't it? It's got to be, everybody's got to be, you've got to lay the blame amongst everyone, to be fair, but they play like strangers. They play like a load of blokes who are trying to remember what they've been doing in training, etc., but either don't have the confidence nor the ability to be able to replicate that for long enough periods during 90 minutes. And it's like, it's just abject week after week. We try and give them a little bit of a boost and think, well, maybe this week we've seen them turn a little bit of a corner, and then we throw something like that shit into the mix. And it's like there are sides that have come to Burnley this year, and all they had to do was sit back, and it didn't really matter because they knew we were going to fuck something up at some point, and they'd walk away 2-1, 3-1 winners, etc. Arsenal came and they absolutely battered us from the word go. They knew when to press, where to press, how to press, and it could have been 7, 8, 9, 10. It didn't really matter. And we just stood around looking like we're passengers, and that it was a completely different game that they were playing as opposed to us. And I think the blame we have to look at where the blame lies, from recruitment through to management, through to Pace and his cronies, etc. Who is to blame and what has fallen to pieces this year, and why has it happened? Because it's going to be one hell of a hard job trying to rectify this over the coming summer season.
Yeah, I mean, we'll look ahead in a bit to it, but I mean, I don't know. In terms of, you've seen people already starting to say, Kompany out. For me, that's a non-starter because, his contract's until 2028, isn't it? He's got another 4 years left. We don't know his exact salary, but presumably he's on at least as much as Sean Dyche was on. So, you're looking at somewhere around 20 million if you want to jettison the Kompany project. And then you're left with a load of players who apparently have signed for him, although I'm sure some of them by now would welcome a change of coach. You would imagine that some of those have been, cast aside and left aside. Let's listen, though, to what Kompany actually had to say about that game, because he said a couple of interesting things we need to discuss. So let's just, Greavesy, can you just roll that audio?
Vincent, even allowing for the quality of the opposition today, how disappointed are you with that performance?
I just said it, but I think sometimes in a situation like this, to speak less is better. We know it wasn't good. And we have a week now to work and put to show who we want to show we are. You know, the Crystal Palace game is a massive game. We can keep dwelling on this game, but we can't let it define us.
How do you lift the squad? How damaging could that be to confidence for your players?
No, I know that these type of games are difficult one that you have to take on the chin, but as well as characters, as professionals, you have to also pick yourself back up, and you have to be able to deal with these moments. It's part and parcel of being in this industry, and you know that won't change wherever you are.
Do you look at your own decisions after games like that? Do you self-analyse and think what you might have done differently, either selection or tactics or whatever?
That's every game. That's always doesn't matter if we win or lose. It's that's a natural process. I mean, the biggest thing for me now is and that experience I do have is that you can dwell about the details on a game like this, but it's not about that. It's got to be about the basics, and that's what you need to get right before the next game. It's been right for you know, we've had individual mistakes that cost us goals. We've had results that haven't gone our way, but our basics were right, and today that's what we have to focus on, living towards the next game.
Manuel Benson's on the bench today. He's not used. He's not been given much game time this season. Some of the fans have seen what he could do last year. You know, what could you say to them about why he's not getting much of a go?
I'm trying not to focus too much on the individual side of things at the moment. We really have to put the collective first, and I know as well that, you know, we can. I mean, there's a lot of players playing who played last season. You know, there's a lot. Everybody's had an opportunity to show themselves at this level. The truth is, it's a level above what any. It's a level above any other league in the world. And some players adapt quickly. Some players take a little bit more time. But the biggest thing for me now is I'm just focused on the collective. That's the only thing we need right now.
Just finally from me then, the games are ticking away now, aren't they? And you really need to start winning quickly soon. Yeah, no, it's a fair assessment, but the winning doesn't happen if you don't have the belief. So it's a big point we want to emphasize for us.
So a few things there that Kompany coming up with. I mean, he's saying that the basics were there, have been there in recent weeks, and they weren't. He's saying, but I mean, you've got to respond to what he's saying there about Manuel Benson. He says there's a lot of players who played last season. Well, there were one on the field yesterday, Josh Brownhill. I don't think there was anyone else in that starting 11 who was part of last year's team. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there were. And he says everyone has had an opportunity. Well, I don't think Manuel Benson's had much of an opportunity. I don't think Zaroury's had much of an opportunity.
Hey, John, to hear the stats, Simon?
Yeah.
He was saying, bearing in mind that Matt Lowton, who was completely disregarded last season until they got him off the books, and he went to Huddersfield Town to see out the season. Matt Lowton played more minutes in the league last season than Manuel Benson has in the league this season.
Yeah, says it all.
I mean,
he's not had a chance to fail, has he? Zaroury hadn't had the chance to fail. Muric hadn't had the chance to fail.
No, I mean, what did you make of Kompany's reactions there, Justin? I mean,
well, I mean, apart from anything else, that what he said there is just not true, is it? It's just nonsense. There are a lot of players who played last season who haven't had a chance to show what they can do. I mean, there's quite a few players who they've signed in the summer who haven't had a chance to show what they can do as well. I think Kompany used to be quite sort of open and quite sort of thoughtful in his press conferences before games and after games. I think he's been coached a little bit to sort of not say as much as he used to. This is why we don't find out that players have had surgery until, a few days after it's actually happened, and we didn't even know they were injured. I think he's been coached a little bit to reduce the amount of information he gives away. I don't know why. I don't know why they've taken that decision. Maybe they think they're keeping the information away from the opposition in some way. But that's just a really weird response, isn't it, to say that, because it's demonstrably untrue. So why would he say it? The other thing I thought as well that was a bit odd was how how he reckons that performance was down to like not getting the basics right, and that, you know, we've got a week before the next game to start getting the basics right. I mean, if we're not getting them right by now, I don't think another week is going to make much of a difference, is it? So why say that? Why just come out with that kind of nonsense? It's just maybe, you know, sometimes you see these managers, they sort of get, when they get under a little bit of pressure, they start behaving a bit erratically, don't they? And maybe he just was, you know, you put on the spot there, or you've got to say something. And when it's as difficult a situation as that is, you know, you might well come out with that kind of nonsense. But most of what he said was just absolute bullshit, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
I mean, Greavesy, from a journalistic point of view, it was quite interesting, that interview, because there's two questions that he gets a lot of soft questions, doesn't he, Vincent Kompany? And he has done all the way through his time because of the respect for him as a player and a man and everything. It's pretty soft ball, you know. And there were two questions where he seemed to sort of bristle there. One was the Benson one, and the other one was the do you look at yourself, you know, which was a sort of very soft way of sort of saying, are you under a bit of pressure here, really, wasn't it, as introducing that in. But is he under pressure, though? I mean, the interviews, Justin's right, they don't tell us that much, but is he under pressure now, do you think?
No, and I think that's the problem. I did drop Gary the interviewer a message saying, I think you don't think you'll be in Vincent's good books by putting him on the spot over Benson. And he said, well, look, you know, when results are bad, you've got to ask difficult questions.
Absolutely.
And he hasn't been asked difficult questions. And the point I made to Gaz is, you know, part of the problem is there is no scrutiny. You know, he is the most beautiful girl in the world that we're lucky to date, and we want to marry him, but he's never going to marry us because there's always going to be something bigger and better. They're Alan Pace's words. Very bizarre, but they were Alan Pace's words. So there's no scrutiny because everybody at that football club is in complete awe of Vincent Kompany. So there is no internal scrutiny at all. I can't imagine him, you know, I can't imagine the board, you know, when he turns up at the board meetings, kind of, you know, they'll ask him, of course they'll ask him about results, and, you know, but he'll be able to spin that in whatever way, you know, it's the project, you know, this is what you signed me for, this is what you wanted me, we're ahead of the game and all this lot. And I'm kind of beginning to think that the 3-year plan has kind of been retrospectively kind of manufactured to make us think that we're ahead of where we are. You know, I'm not saying it wasn't a 3-year plan, but I don't know. There's kind of, you know, we're starting to get that kind of, well, it's a 3-year plan and we're ahead of it. We got into the Premier League after 1 year. So if we're back in the Premier League in year 3, then we'll have, you know, the plans on track kind of thing. So, but no real internal scrutiny. And the thing you've got to remember as well is for someone like Gary, you know, he's a Burnley fan. You know, when Chris covered Burnley Football Club, he's a Burnley fan. You know, when I covered Burnley Football Club, I'm a Burnley fan. You know, you do want answers. You know, when things are as bad as they were on Saturday, you do want answers. And it is the manager's job, and he can bristle all he wants at being asked about Manuel Benson. But, I mean, Manuel Benson must be power shite in training to not get on. You know, having spent 100 million quid or whatever it is, you know, I'm sure the Clarets crew will tell us exactly to the penny the agreed transfer figure. But how have we spent that amount of money and we're still bringing on Jay Rodriguez? We're still bringing on Johan Berg Goodmanson. We're still bringing on Charlie Taylor. Do you know what I mean? There's definitely something.
Probably should be starting them, to be honest.
Probably should be. But you know what I mean? In terms of like, you know, if we are going to talk about the project, I did try and work this out, and I was a bit drunk when I was out last night. But I was talking to Gracie, who a few listeners will know Gracie, Accrington Clarets, and known around the turf is Gracie, and he was saying there's like nearly 1,000 Premier League appearances on that bench, somewhere between 700 and 1,000 Premier League appearances on that bench yesterday, with Taylor, with Corky, with Johan Berg Goodmanson, with Jay. That is what this is what we needed, you know. And again, you know, I don't like keep banging on about Luton, but you can look elsewhere. What have Brighton always had? They've always had a Lallana, a Milner, a Welbeck. You know, Brentford have got a Ben Mee. We've got a load of kids who it's unfair on them for us to keep, putting them out like lambs to the slaughter, when actually you need that glue just to knit everything together. We've said it a few times. I think we were probably all in agreement that we'd have probably given Barnsley another year just for that pure grabbing people by the scruff of the neck and saying, this is what it means. This is what it means to be in the Premier League. I'm going to say something that most people won't agree with. I actually don't. I mean, everyone fawns over Wilson Odegaard. Apart from flashes, he has not done anything for me, really. Anonymous again for most of yesterday. A couple of good runs. I'm not saying he's a bad player. He will be a good player, but is it fair to keep putting him out there, setting him up to fail like we're doing with Trafford? We're doing it with everybody. We did say give the new signings 3 games and they'll be as shite as the rest of them. Steve looked like a pub player. He looked like he looked shell-shocked. And he was knacking after 35 minutes. It's a big step. All of these are huge steps from the bottom end of the French League to the bottom end of the Premier League is a huge step up.
Absolutely.
But you need them players. Like, why don't you play a Cork, play midfield 3? There's an arrogance to think that you can play a number 10 against Arsenal and just have Josh Brownhill and Sander Berger. I've started calling Josh Brownhill the fucking ghost. Half the time you can't see him. Honestly, he's winding me up. He's winding me up, Simon. I'm just...
Yeah, well, there's a few of them. I kind of agree with you about Odegaard in the sense that he's got that run. His head gets down and he's running at them and he can beat a man, and that's exciting. Koleosho had that as well. There's not a lot else that we've seen from him, though, is there, really, apart from that? Yeah, I mean, it's... the project, we have to talk about the project. I know it's big picture stuff, but, you look at the Championship now and you see Leicester City and Leeds United look like they've got a good chance of returning to the Premier League. Does anyone think for 1 minute they're going to abandon those teams that have got them promoted and go out and sign a load of unknown young players from various parts of Europe? And the bizarre thing is, I went back and looked at my notes, should we say, from a chat I had with Alan Pace before he bought Burnley, when he was outlining his plans for the club. And the plans for the club were very focused on academy, English players. We need to take advantage of our catchment area of being close to Man United, Man City and Liverpool and pick up young English talent, the Dwight McNeil model, if you like, pick up young English talent from these academies who've been not given a chance at City or United or Liverpool, bring them in, work with them, improve them, succeed with them, and then sell them on at a profit. That was the ALK model when they came in the door. He was very clear in that chat when I went back and looked at it. And yet, after a year, they go and do completely the opposite and go and buy players from all over Europe. I mean, Woody, is this... You said this a couple of weeks, Vince. The players have been set up to fail, but this project itself, the whole idea of what we've tried to do this season, it looks now completely mad, doesn't it?
Oh, it's bollocks. It's some kind of 1984 doublespeak to cover off on the fact that they think that they've got a fucking plan, which you quite patently haven't. The project wasn't, let's go up in his first season, get rid of everybody that actually got us up, or not play everybody that got us up, and then the season after go back to the Championship and rebuild again. Is that a fucking project? No, that's fucking winging it. That's what that is. And the sooner we realise and work that out, the better we'll be moving forwards in trying to sort this shit out. It's just ridiculous. And time will tell, and we won't need that much 2020 vision to work out in a few weeks or a couple of months exactly where things have been going slightly awry, etc. It's bollocks as far as I'm concerned. Tell us what the project is. Somebody tell us what the project is, because I don't know what it is.
I think there'll be PhDs written in future years on the Burnley Premier League 23-24 experiment. Yeah. It feels like something that you would write an academic paper on. In terms of, just to try
postmodern approach to recruitment.
Yeah. It's just kind of, the more I think about it, the more it just feels like, I don't know. You are right. It's kind of, I get that there's a project, and I get the big picture is buy cheap, sell big. But as Matt Williams pointed out on Radio Lancashire, the transfer fees we're paying are not cheap. When you're paying again, insert fact check here, 15, 18 million for Amdouni. You've got to make a lot of money on Amdouni to get that back. When you're paying, 57.5 million or whatever we paid for James Trafford, you're having to pay, you're having to sell even bigger, So we've kind of abandoned the picking up these players cheap. Who, I think Koleosho's the only one really that we've picked up properly for cheap this summer. Even Odegaard, 8-9 million euros or whatever it was. So we're not even going down the picking up hidden gems that are, So there's a feeling, I think, that we've paid this money for these players, so we've got to play them. Yeah, that's the only reason.
To be fair, there's a lot of people raving about Dougie Freedman at Palace for spotting Wharton and paying 20-odd million quid for him at Blackburn Rovers. Very, very good player. He's only played Championship football and England under-20 football, not even for under-21s yet. No. Very, very, very gifted player, and no doubt he'll show us that at the weekend. But if that's being acclaimed as a bargain, 20 million quid, it's just, this is where we're at. And everyone's sort of saying, I've no issue at all in, we need to follow the Brighton model and unearth players and move them on, and follow the Brentford model and, the Moneyball sort of thing, which is fine. Like Greasy said, Brighton had always had a Lallana or a Milner or someone like that, and Brentford have been, they've been direct, they've been aggressive, they've used Tony, physically been superb, and we've just dismantled all of that. We've just put a team out there. Let's throw out this team of, it's not even a team, let's throw out this collection of individuals that we think we can make a few quid on, without any thought of how to meld them into a collective. And we've dismantled the most exciting Burnley side in living memory to do this. And it's just absolutely perplexing. Brighton, let's say, they went up with Chris Hughton. They didn't go up playing, this beautiful football from the future, and, De Zerbi getting linked with the Liverpool job, etc. They went up, they were pragmatic, they stayed up, they built. They started spotting these stars, the McAllisters and the Caicedos and people like that, because they dropped a lot on a lot of garbage early on, Brighton, if you remember. I can't remember the lad's name. They signed a forward from Holland for about 17 million that disappeared without trace, an Iranian winger. Likewise, they got a lot wrong, but stayed in the league, with your Solly Marches and all this, this type of player. Brentford the same, they spent an awful lot of money. They signed signed Janssen from Leeds at centre half, and signed the lad from the centre half from Celtic, and they're relying on Pinnock, who's come from non-league, and a freebie in Ben Mee, and things like that. We've just why is Jack Cork? He's either sat in the stand or on the bench, and you're looking at that. Talking about winning the league at Ewood, we're getting completely dominated in that game by Adam Wharton. Brings on Jack Cork, different kettle of fish. Don't tell me Jack Cork could play in this midfield with Berger and AN other, like a three-man midfield. Corky knows how to look after a football and keep it moving in the Premier League. He might, he's getting to the end. No secret there. But don't tell me he's just been completely jettisoned. And we all Charlie Taylor's playing out of necessity. Probably about fifth choice left back at the start of the season and things like that. It's just madness.
I think somebody made a point. I mean, you mentioned De Zerbi and it's probably a good point actually. But David Whitney on Twitter mentioned, he put a post out saying, compare the way De Zerbi's treated Verbruggen with how we've treated Trafford. I mean, Verbruggen's only made 10 Premier League starts. And I do think it's that kind of, at some point, and I made the point in reply to him, at some point, a good coach will plan a young player's development for the good of that player and for the good of the team and the club.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's negligence to the what we've done with James Trafford. I get it. I get the fact that we paid whatever we paid for him. And, he's a shiny new toy and Vincent wants to play him. But it would have been better to pick and choose the games that you play Trafford in. I mean, how old's Trafford? 20, 21, not even 21 yet.
20.
So there's no need. There's no need for him to play at this level week in, week out, because he will play at this level probably for the rest of his career. I do think he'll be, I think he'll develop into a really good goalkeeper. How many goalkeepers are world beaters at that age? Very few of them. Even less of them that have only played League One football and haven't played Championship football or haven't played in one of the foreign leagues. And I just thought it was a really good point from David about De Zerbi and the way he's treated Verbruggen and what they'll end up getting. Verbruggen's development will be light years ahead of Trafford's because he's been used and he's been poor at times and he's made mistakes and he's conceded a hatful of goals on occasion. But actually, when you're looking at it, again, and it could be that inexperience of the management team and the coaching team that we've got. But I just thought it's such a good point in terms of, projects and all this lot. There's no need for a 19-year-old goalkeeper to be your starting goalkeeper in the Premier League.
To dip him in and out. I mean, we're going back a while now, but I can always remember speaking to Steve Cotterill about, the way he introduced Lafferty, McCann. Less so J-Rod. He gave J-Rod his first professional contract, but he was gone a couple of months later. So the way Owen Coyle sort of drip-fed Jay in, then he went out on loan, and then he got to the stage where you couldn't keep him out of the team. But yeah, I say Koleosho, they played him until he broke. Odegaard now, he needs taking out of the side, doesn't he? He can't keep playing the 19, 20-year-old week after week after week after week. Especially not at this level under this scrutiny.
I mean, one of the things people have sort of turned into for a little bit of comfort, perhaps, is, it'll be better in the Championship. It was more fun last year. Well, it's always more fun when you're winning, isn't it? But it'll be more fun. It'll be more fun in the Championship. It's better there, and we'll piss it. We're gonna come storming back up, and Vincent will have learned all the lessons from this time around, and we won't make the same mistakes again. But against that, there's a certain reality with the club and its financial situation, which is the reason why, Nick Pope and Dwight McNeil don't still play for Burnley, isn't it? What do we expect from this situation? Like now, looking ahead in big picture, we're down, basically, unless anyone's going to disagree with that. But we're down. So do we expect that this will be the side in the Championship next year, or do we expect a fire sale or a load of tinkering, or what? Justin, what do you think's on the horizon for this club?
I don't know. It's difficult without knowing the ins and outs of the contracts. It's very difficult to know how it's going to pan out. You talk about a fire sale, but where are these players going to go if we do sell them? We touched on this a little bit last week, didn't we? If we do go down, we don't have the players who are going to attract massive transfer fees like we did when we went down last time. We don't have those, £25 million players, do we? Is there anybody in there who's got that potential? A lot of the players, as I said last week, the young players that we've signed this season have proved this season is they're not ready for the Premier League. That's all they've proved. So maybe Sander Berger, I think, is probably the only one I can think of off the top of my head who's enhanced his reputation rather than diminished it over the course of this season. I would expect him to stay in the Premier League, but he's not going to be a £25 million player, is he? Who's going to splash the cash on Koleosho or Odegaard? Like I say, they look like they're going to be good players, but they're not there yet, are they? And I suppose somebody would take a gamble on the potential, but are they going to pay what we paid for those players? I mean, the thoughts also turn to players like Trezor. I mean, are we still down to splash 18 million on him at the end of the season? If if we go down, we don't know the ins and outs of the contract, do we? But I would expect most of them to stay. I think it would be Well, I mean, I said this at the end of last season. I don't know whether we can expect a massive transition of players in and out like we did over the last 2 summers. That would seem really, really sort of foolish to me. A good solid season in the Championship for a lot of these players would do them a lot of good. But like you say, Simon, it's like there are no guarantees. It's a tough division to get out of. There will be other teams who are just as well positioned as we are. So there's never any guarantees about anything. And then where do the finances take us at the end of that season? There's a real sense, I think, and I think this is where the real frustration goes, that we've missed the opportunity. We did that sort of collection of players that we loved to watch last season. There were some gems in there. I remember saying to somebody, we paid, these players were like 3 million or somewhere around that sort of that mark. And I said, as soon as we get promoted, Anna Saruri is worth 20 million of anybody's money. And we've just ruined that career. We've just ruined that potential that we had to capitalize on that by just casting these players aside. It's baffling to me why that's happened. It's just totally baffling. All those players that we signed, not many of them are now worth what they might have been had the sort of progress that we begin to establish continued.
Yeah, no, how much is Rory worth if he doesn't even, it's not apparently not going very well for him at Hull. He's probably dejected, isn't he? He's been moved from Burnley to Hull. He's probably not very happy about it, shunted out. His Premier League dream is over for now. If it doesn't go well for him at Hull City, somebody's looking at his career trajectory and saying, well, young lad from Belgium, came over, did all right for a year in Championship, didn't make it in Premier League, went to Hull, didn't do much there. You're not spending 20 million on that. No, you're not. No. Would he, with the owners we've got, though? Do we know? We're suspicious to a degree of what they might do in the summer. You don't know the financial situation because there isn't much transparency there. What do you expect from Pace and Co? Are they going to look at this and go like, right, Vincent, go again, or what do you think their mentality is going to be?
Well, I don't know. It kind of depends if we look back on what they owed from last year in terms of loans. Well, what then carries over to this year in terms of what they owe, and do they still have to find that level of finance to be able to pay back? And if that's the case, then we don't have the so-called playing resources like we've just spoken about in order to make that shortfall. So that shortfall could arguably be slightly bigger this next time round. We're going to have to do the loan thing again because obviously that's now the de rigueur way of trying to promote oneself, get 3 or 4 loanees in, and they do the best part of your donkey work through a season, and then you don't sign them, and then you've got to find somebody else all over again that next new season. So we don't know. We don't know how much money we need to pay back, etc., what we'll get back off various players, and then how much we have to rebuild. And that's not necessarily what I'd call a surefire recipe for coming straight back up from the Championship, next year. Not by any stretch.
Yeah, and a reminder that these loans and the whole financial situation, they're secured against Turf Moor and the training ground. Just mentioned that. We don't need to go into all that, but just worth bearing that in mind when we talk about wasting 100 million in the transfer market. Let's talk about a few things that happened off the field, though. Those of us who weren't there at Turf Moor missed the joys of the halftime show, and we had apparently away fans in home sections again, and a new security regime. Greavesy, Justin, you tell us about what it was like. That side of things.
Yeah, we got searched. Oh well, kind of selective lines were being searched. And it's the typical kind of pat down, blah blah blah. And I asked what we were being searched for, and the steward said weapons and drugs. Now I had to chuckle a little bit because the bloke 2 in front of me was about 78, and he also got the old pat down treatment. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, it's kind of like, and it was only blokes who were being patted down. I know there's protocols around female stewards having to search women, etc., women and girls, But everything about it yesterday felt like it's just a bit shit. You know, everything's just a bit shit. The drop it like it hot has to be the worst half-time since
you're going to have to explain what it is. You're going to have to explain to people because you don't see it on TV, do you?
No.
It's just...
So what drop it like it hot essentially is if you've ever seen The Wall with Danny Dyer, where you've got to kind of put a coin in at the top and it goes into one of the things at the bottom. It goes into like one of a number of different slots at the bottom. It's kind of like a really old-fashioned kind of fairground game, I guess. And they added a bit of extra kind of jeopardy yesterday. So the person, they picked 3 people at random from the app, and then you've got to score a penalty against Bella B. Now,
it already sounds terrible, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'll say now, Bella B is a worse goalkeeper than James Trafford. She is. I don't want to be too critical. You know, young lass making her way in the game, etc., etc.
There's a player in there.
You get two chances as well. You get 2 chances to beat her.
Yeah, and you say there's a player in there. I'm half expecting that the players who we don't see are dressed up as Bertie and Bella. So I think Bertie and Bella yesterday were Mike Trezor and
Masengo can't get his hair inside that outfit though.
And then anyway, so you get your chance. You then put a coin in. But the problem yesterday was because it was absolutely chucking it down, the coin wouldn't move. So we had the slot number 6 was the star prize. So we basically had the contestants trying to move the
coin down
into, and they all hit number 6, obviously. So one of them walked away with a signed Burnley shirt, and 2 walked away with 150 quid on a prepaid Uphold Visa card.
The first guy got the shine shirt. I'm sure he must have gone back and said, "Can I have the 150 quid?"
Exactly, 150 quid. But yeah, that was
pie and chips.
Yeah, that was an absolute shit show. What else did you mention? Yeah, home away fans in the home ends again. Apparently not near me this time, which I was quite pleased about. But yeah, massive queues outside the turf because of this new search regime, and it's just.
What drugs do they expect to find in the Bob Lord stand, though?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they were searching in the Bob Lord stand.
Yeah.
I was in the North Upper. I mean, I imagine kind of the cricket field, from what I read on message boards, is the place where you'd have the pyro dogs and drugs dogs. Now, there is drugs and pyro dogs that are around, and they are kind of just, sniffing around at random. But yeah, our friend, and we can't call him Bobby anymore. No. Don't we? So, but again, Robert. It's just everything about it's just a bit wank.
Well, you ask yourself the question, don't you? How can we enhance the fan experience? I know what we'll do. We'll frisk everybody before they go in. Well, I mean,
check that tartan rug.
That's never ever happened to me going into Turf Moor before, and there was no sort of explanation. There was no sort of, the communication lines are always open, aren't they? The club could have put out a tweet saying, "Look, this is what we're going to do at Saturday's game, and this is why we're going to do it," because there may be very, very good reasons for it, but how do we know if they don't tell us? So you turn up and you're thinking, what? I've got to be patted down by some sort of, they look like work experience people who've been given jackets that don't quite fit them properly. And they said, "Enjoy the game" to me as I passed the test, and I was like, "Yeah, there's not a fucking hell's chance of that happening."
I did see a tweet saying that the dog or dogs, whatever insert were applicable, would be at the ground yesterday, but there's no real explanation as to why suddenly they feel that's necessary. Oh.
No. Well,
Woody, did you see? We had our own little experience of fan experience from Burnley over here in the States. Did you catch the?
No, I missed that, and I never saw it again. They kept advertising for a Premier League experience, but then denied it was actually anything to do with Burnley. Because why the fuck would anybody want to go to Burnley after watching that? Anyway,
yeah, before the game, a little it wasn't totally an advert. It was like a little segment, just pre-recorded with JJ Watt and Keelia Watt appearing and saying, "Hi, this is JJ and Keelia. Special competition, trip to the turf, all expenses paid, flight, throwing in a meet and greet or a dinner with JJ Watt and Keelia Watt and experience, Turf Moor. And then it said, click on this QR code that appeared on screen for details, which I tried to do. Might be me being useless, but the QR code didn't work for me. Apparently, an email did go out to some registered American fans, but there was no information anywhere, nothing about this competition that they'd gone to the trouble of promoting on NBC, nothing about it on the club website, nothing on Twitter, nothing on JJ Watt's Twitter feed, which has gone strangely quiet since the Super Bowl. It's 7 days. He normally does a little breakfast sort of post before the game, but nothing about that. I mean, he must have run out of Benny and Hot or something. But
I think, to be fair to, I think he's celebrating his wedding anniversary. I did notice something about his wedding anniversary.
For 7 days.
But, well,
good man.
When you've got all that cash, you can do, can't you? He's
exactly.
kind of. But I wonder if
at least Malcolm's here anyway.
Malcolm was it, wasn't it?
Maybe he won it. Maybe he won it. Maybe he won it with Benny and Hart. I don't know.
Poor bugger. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll see. We'll see if any Clarets make that trip over with that competition prize.
Can I just come back on something there, Simon? I have to admit, I never read the email that they send me from the football club the day before the game that asks me if I am ready. I'm more concerned about whether they're ready or not, to be honest with you. But it does. I've just I've just dug the email that they sent me on Friday out, and it does say, "Don't miss kickoff." The club wish to remind supporters of the ongoing roadworks in and around Burnley, and that has been going on for a long time, hasn't it? But the next sentence is, "We have introduced new search measures around the club on match days, therefore it may take longer to enter the stadium." So there was a warning that I didn't see, but it doesn't explain why those new search measures are in place or what they are. So to be fair to them, there is a little bit of a warning there.
There we go, correcting the record.
I'm beginning to think that the turf to town that's causing all the issues on York Street is part of the project. I mean, it's the same level of competency as the recruitment. So I've got visions of Bobby Ball being in charge of Sir Robert of Ballshire being in charge of the roadworks on Yorkshire Street outside the Royal Dice, because it is a shambles. I mean, it was meant to be done for the start of the season. But again, perhaps they didn't mention which season it was going to be ready by. But yeah, the whole experience at the minute, and we've said this a few times, the whole experience at the minute is just a bit. It becomes a drain, doesn't it? I mean, you were talking, Simon, to Tony Scholes. Listeners will know Tony and know kind of how passionate he is, and he said on the Clarets on his match report that he just didn't feel anything when that first goal went in. He said. He's made a point in his match report saying, I never thought I would feel like that.
No, I mean, when Justin said on here, after I did a sort of long ramble about this team not being very likable or whatever, and Justin came out with this phrase about it doesn't feel like Burnley anymore, I've seen a lot of people coming out with that over the last hour, day or so. It does feel like something sort of broke a little bit yesterday. I don't know. It was the bond has been strained this year, hasn't it? That bond between fans.
Yeah, I think that is true. I think you can feel it in the ground that there's a bit of lethargy about it. There's a lot of sort of sitting back with arms folded rather than getting angry when the goals go in. I felt like that, and it's funny you say that, because I do feel a little bit like I'm finding it very, very difficult to care too much. I don't know whether it's because the more invested you get, the more it hurts. But I do feel like there's a sense of that in the ground. I don't know whether it don't feel like Burnley anymore is quite the way to put it, because I think this is something that happens. This is happening to all Premier League sides, isn't it? The foreign ownership, the global reach of the league. It's like every Premier League club now is just sort of another Premier League side that just happens to be in, whatever town or city it's in. The big ones retain the identity, but clubs like ours are, I think I was quite critical of the way that Manchester City set up their pre-match entertainment. I didn't enjoy that. And I sort of feel like when I go to Turf Moor now, particularly the night games, it's sort of a mini version of that a little bit. It's sort of like, and I don't know who it's aimed at. It's not aimed at me, obviously. I say that a lot, don't I? It's not aimed at me. But I don't know quite who it's aimed at. It must be aimed at like people trying to attract other people to watch this stuff. And it does feel like it's happening everywhere, that all these teams are becoming just like Premier League franchises rather than retaining that sort of core identity. I mean, I'm not one of these people who doesn't want to see Burnley try and reach other markets all over the world. I definitely do want that to happen. That's the only way you can survive in this world, isn't it? But just feel like you can't look over what's around. Burnley Football Club is a community asset. I've said that many times, that has got to exist in service of the town of Burnley and the people of Burnley beyond anything else. Sure, keep pushing out, keep reaching out to those new markets, but don't take your eye off the ball with the people who really count, the people who will be there long after, who said Pace and his cronies? Long after Pace and his cronies have gone, those people will still be there and still be paying the money to go and watch the team. So we must look after them as much as anybody else.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Justin said the pre-match entertainment's not for him. I'm getting to the point where I don't think the football's for me. I don't know who the football's for, but it's not what I ordered. Christ, it's not what I ordered.
Chris, you had more dealings with the club, as an institution than any of us on this. How do you feel like that connection is between the fans and the club?
Well, I mean, there's few people have sort of regarded sort of any comments I've made as being bitter. That because we didn't have much in the way of dealings with Mr. Pace once he took over. I mean, the local press had one sit down with him in 18 months. But it's not me being bitter. I couldn't give a, if you don't want to speak, that's fine. It's fine. I'm not going to lose my mind over it. But it's gone from. Again, you see on sort of social media and message boards about, it's all a click, this, that, and the other, and it was just there's people who worked there a hell of a long time who cared a hell of a lot about that football club who aren't there anymore, and they were doing a perfectly good job. That the club had been in the Premier League for 8 years out of 10. Yeah, it's like Justin said. We know you want to branch out and explore different markets and. Try and, reach out and acquire new fans. But likewise, I used to put articles in the paper from New York Clarets. They used to send me little bits and pieces about little meetings they'd had, and we're coming over for this game and this, that, and the other. There was always Burnley fans in various points of the globe. I mean, there's always been a feature in the programme, hasn't there? People getting a photograph in wherever they are with their Burnley shirts on. They're not all from Burnley, It's it has lost that sort of feel, that local feel, and I think they've thrown thrown the baby out with the bathwater a little. It's probably too much change in too short a time, and it's been the same on the field as well. You can speak about loyalty, and Sean was maybe too loyal times, to certain players. It drove some fans to despair how he'd stick with some players, when they weren't performing well. And but this has gone too far the other way, probably. It'll always be our football club. It'll always be Burnley Football Club. But at the moment, there are a lot of people feeling a little disenfranchised.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's well put, Chris. And I think we'll leave it on that note. We've covered a lot of ground there. We'll be back on Thursday with another episode, and look forward to that. And in the meantime, please do follow us on social media and give us a review or a like wherever you find us. And don't forget our shop with our range of stunning T-shirts with apt slogans, including 99% misery, which should be the official T-shirt of this episode. So have a good one. See you soon. Cheers.